Fab. Okay, well, we will kick off with panel number 3, which is LGBTQ plus representation in travel. So for anyone who has just joined us and wasn't here for our last session, I am delighted to welcome you to our first ever Skyscanner virtual Pride, and this is our panel number 3. My name is Jenna, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder of Skyscanner's Pride Network and head of inclusion and diversity. I also run the LGBT and travel blog and Instagram account, The Jenna Way. And I'm delighted to have the honour of speaking to some incredible panellists throughout today, talking about a topic that I'm super passionate about. So before I introduce our panelists, just want to cover a couple of housekeeping rules for anyone that is new to our call. The event itself is running on one continuous link over 5 hours, so feel free to drop in and out to the panels that are of most interest to you, or stay for the whole time if that is your style. This is a safe space, so we are maintaining a zero tolerance policy to any abusive or offensive or derogatory comments or questions, and those won't be passed on to our panelist. The sessions will be recorded, and this allows us to make them accessible to anyone who's not able to attend today, and keep them live on our site for the future for anyone else who wishes to learn from our incredible panelists. And for this webinar, our Zoom chat has been disabled, but we are using Slido, so there's a link in the chat box there where you can go to Slido and you can ask our panelists any questions that you've got. Feel free to use that at any time throughout the panel, and we'll come to that at the end. The hashtag for this particular panel is #travel, so a nice and easy one to remember. Cool. So I think we'll jump in and introducing the panelists. We've got first up Sion, one half of the Globetrotter guys, Sion Ben, from a gay travel blog, the Globetrotter guys. They travel around the world together, putting together, detailed gay travel guides, learning about LGBTQ plus culture and sharing their experiences along the way. So thanks for joining us. You might also recognise Aisha from our earlier panel on lesbian travel. Aisha is UK Black Pride's volunteer manager and runs Moonlight Experiences, which is a diverse tour company that celebrates LGBTQ plus nightlife, history and culture through unique activities. And finally we have Josh from Skyscanner. He's our marketing manager for the Americas with 8 years of marketing experience and a background in sociology and global communications. Some of his passions lie in learning about global eco-sustainability and social cause initiatives, and he's an avid traveller and enjoys visiting new countries and learning about new cultures. So thanks so much guys for all joining us today. It's awesome to have you. So before we jump into the topic, I just wondered if you want to just sort of say hi, share your pronouns and perhaps your favourite travel memory of 2019. Sion, maybe start with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me to start with, and thank you for the introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Sean. I'm from the UK and my pronouns are he and him. My favourite travel moment of 2019 or 2020. I have been away this year. I'll go with 2020 because this year me and my husband went on the biggest gay cruise in the world back in January, and it was absolutely incredible. I can't even put it into words. That was definitely a highlight of this year.
Amazing, that sounds incredible. Josh, do you want to go?
Yeah, thank you once again for having all of us here, Jenna and Skyscanner, for hosting this very important event. My pronouns are he and him, and one of my favorite, travel memories of 2019, also bleeding into kind of 2020, is at the end of the year, me, my partner, and a couple of our friends went to Brazil. We spent about 10 days, our first time in Brazil. Heard nothing but good things, and we just had the time of our lives. We actually landed in Christmas Day on the 25th, spent Christmas on the beach. I'm from Miami, so it's no real difference, but nonetheless, it was kind of strange to spend Christmas in Brazil. And then also leading up to New Year's. So we saw the fireworks in Copacabana Beach, which is, if you haven't done it, do it. It's truly magical.
Yeah, I definitely second recommending Brazil. Loved it. Aisha.
Hey again. Thank you for having me for this session. I think I'm going to say a place for 2020 that I really, really loved is we were so fortunate to make it to Vietnam just before COVID-19 happened and before the whole lockdown. So for me, it will be Vietnam. just because also it was a time that I proposed to my fiance. So that's why it's so special.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Cool. So we've just got a little poll popping up here. And today's panel, we're discussing representation. So we're talking about like seeing ourselves represented in the media, in advertising, in brands promoting their destination or their products and things like that. So we've got a little poll there for anyone who is dialed in and wants to participate. And we can share that again at the end. We can share the results. So talking today about the importance of representation, particularly in the travel sector, why is it important to you that LGBT travelers are represented in the media and in the travel industry? Sean, I can go to you first.
Yeah, sure. So when I'm thinking about travel, in general, there's so much planning that goes into travel, but when you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, there's a whole nother list to think about. And you have to think about, is the destination going to be welcoming? What are the laws in that destination? Then you have to think about at the hotel that you're staying at. How is that hotel? Are the staff trained? Are they going to ask me all the awkward questions? Are you brothers? All those things that I'm sure that plenty of people have heard before. And then even that extends to every single activity you do. And actually, when you start to think about all these things, it can become quite stressful. And travel is supposed to be a really enjoyable thing to do, an enjoyable thing to plan. But as a gay traveler, you have got these thoughts sort of looming over your head. Now, when I see myself represented, whether it's in a YouTube video for a destination or whether it's in a photo on a website for a hotel, that immediately makes me feel so much more at ease to go to that destination or go to that hotel. It takes away the fact that I have to go and do all this research and spend all this time looking at it to reassure myself the destination or hotel or whatever have done it for me. And it can be just as subtle as a photo, and seeing myself there, that tells me a lot, and it gives me that reassurance to then go ahead. And that's actually really one of the main reasons to me why it's so important that LGBT club travellers are represented in media and marketing at all different levels. And I hope that you guys agree with that.
Josh, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think, Sean really wrapped it up pretty well, and all the bullet points that he mentioned, I definitely agree. I think it's also important because it allows you, reassures you that this destination, this area is gay friendly. It is safe. I think someone mentioned in the previous panel that when you do arrive to a destination, you kind of have to look over your shoulders, or you kind of wonder, can I hold my partner's hand? Can I be who I am in this place? So I think having that open conversation in media in general, even just portrayal of LGBT community in doing travel things in that destination, really, once again, reassures the traveler, A, that it's okay. But then B, also opens up the conversation and really opens up the opportunity for that brand or that destination to say, we are friendly, we're accepting.
For sure. And Aisha, I guess we're using the word representation, and we're saying that representation is important, which I think we all agree it is. But I think we also discussed in our earlier panel, the LGBTQ plus umbrella is such a massive range of experiences. So what does the word representation mean to you? Like, what is good representation?
For me, good representation means actually taking the time to know a range of people within that umbrella, so within the queer community, and representing it in an authentic way. I mean, similar to what we were talking about earlier, for lesbian travelers or for queer women, it's representing queer women in a way that isn't sexualized. That's also a point. And also when you look at booking companies, they're not representing people that look like me. There's very few booking companies that actually do that. And it's a little bit disheartening when you're booking hotels or places like that and you can't see people who look like you. So it's absolutely important that we look at different avenues and we do the work, because it's not easy. It's very easy to, for example, put a straight couple and pretend that they're queer women, or they're, you know, gay guys or queer guys. It's very, very easy. But we recognize the difference, and we know when it's just like pink washing and it's just for the pink coin. So it's absolutely crucial that the work is being done properly, because when we are represented, we will come to that brand, we will be loyal to that brand. You know, 70% of the LGBT community spend so much in travel, and they will be loyal to us, that brand, over a long period of time.
For sure. And Sean, you on your Instagram, you did a couple of polls recently, which you shared with me around what LGBT people are looking for when it comes to representation and inclusive marketing. And it was sort of comparing, like, do you want a once a year thing or sort of all year round? Do you want to speak to a little bit around that and what the results were that you got from that?
Yeah, definitely. So this is something that's always on my mind, and there's sort of two halves to it. There's the element of, yes, like we've already mentioned, rainbow washing, which simply means all of a sudden a company or a brand or a destination just sticks a rainbow on and that's where it ends. And in some ways that's okay to an extent, because it's still visibility. So there is a little bit of goodness, but it's a little bit weak. And then the second part is about showing up just during Pride Month. So it's very relevant right now. You've got the rainbow washing, but then also just turning up in Pride Month, and almost, it might not be true, but it almost feels like sometimes for the rest of the year, it's like they forget that we exist. And we're gay 365 days of the year. I am anyway. So those are the sort of two things that I had on my mind when I was coming to Instagram with this poll. Because I don't like it when people feel like they're jumping on the bandwagon. I want them to have a bit of substance behind what they're thinking when they're gonna work with LGBTQ creators, or they're gonna do a campaign focused around Pride. I want them to be thinking in depth. And one of the things that I do like to see is that charity element, because it's no secret that there is money in the LGBTQ market, and that by sometimes putting a rainbow on, they're cashing in. So what I really like to see is that, yes, if you are going to profit during this month, yeah, give 10% to charity. And for me as a consumer, that is such a good thing to see. And this is where it sort of leads into these questions that I put out then. So the first question that I put out was, do people prefer to see a brand doing light touch representation all year round, or does it have more of an impact if they go on one big spend in June, in Pride Month? And I say spend because if you're thinking about brands, they might argue, well, I've only got 10 grand to spend and I spent it all in June. So my question was really, would you rather do little things and spend the same amount of money, but all year round? And actually 83% of people said it would have a much bigger impact if they just saw a light touch representation all throughout the year. So that's a big percentage. And it tells me that people want to be seen outside of this 1 month. The other question I asked, it was quite a simple one. Does simply seeing yourself, whether you're a gay couple, lesbian couple, queer couple, whatever, does seeing yourself in an advert influence your perception of that brand? It doesn't have to be an advert that's all singing or dancing about pride. It could just be, I don't know, McCain oven chips do one, where they just happened to have a gay couple. It wasn't about being gay, but they were included. And I said, does that impact your influence of that brand? 79% said yes. And what was actually really interesting, I asked the question, would you be happy to pay more for the exact same product if it came from a brand that you've seen has supported the LGBT community? And for that, 87% people said they would be willing to pay more if it's a brand that they would stand behind. And finally, does a brand's activities in Pride Month alone have a lasting impact on your purchasing decisions? And that was a pretty even split. 53% said yes and 47% said no. So out of all the questions, that was the sort of weakest one. But the rest really told me that we totally appreciate visibility and everything brands do, but we do want to be represented all year round. And I think that's the main takeaway from that, and it's quite an important point.
True, yeah, thanks for sharing that insight. I think it's really great, and it's good to have numbers behind it as well. I think that really speaks to Aisha's point of going deep and doing it right, rather than trying to just like skim over the top. And yeah, touch on it once a year versus, you know, getting the right people in the room, speaking to the right people, making sure you're representing a wide umbrella of the people you're trying to reach, and making it a part of your sort of marketing in whatever shape that looks for you all year round, rather than ticking the box in June and waiting another 11 months to come back to it. Josh, do you have any other thoughts on that? Anything you want to add, I guess, from a marketing perspective as well? That's your area.
Yeah, for sure. You know, obviously, I think the theme overall is, you know, the representation is great. We need to have that diversity. We need to have, you know, that all year round type of influence and visibility, no matter what brand you are, but yes, including travel. From a marketing perspective, you know, I've had some time to kind of think of this question, and even throughout my years, I've dabbled with the idea of, okay, well, let me do kind of like an experiment, right? Let me go ahead and create an advert, and create a campaign before we launch, and put 2 different types of people, you know, on each ad, and let's see what my leadership chooses. And it is always 9 times out of 10, you know, the straight couple, or, you know, the white couple, or the white person, or the white man, or just men in general. It's never, you know, there's very little diversity when it comes to that front-facing advert. And I think from a marketing perspective, and as a marketer, I think it's super important to kind of use your voice and use your power and use your creativity and use your knowledge to be like, no, listen, this is what we want to put out because of this, because it's right. You know, our audiences, no matter what brand you're in, let's say it's travel. Everyone travels, you know, and everyone wants, there's no kind of like, I'm this person, so I only travel, you know, I'm white, so I only travel, I'm black, so I only travel. We need to have that representation. And like I said, as a marketer, it's almost like your job to be able to speak your truth and say, hey, we need to have this diversity. Our community is hugely diverse, and like we were saying, there's almost 23 plus identities underneath the LGBTQ community. You know, there's people of color, there's trans, intersex, asexual, allies. And I think it's about time that everyone is represented.
Sure, and I think that speaks to like mainstream, like brands are trying to target everyone, needing to have that space. But Aisha, the business that you run as well, Moonlight Experiences, specifically is like a space also for, I guess, LGBT people. Do you want to share a little bit about what that is, and then like how you market with that to capture the LGBT audience that you're trying to reach?
Yeah, of course. So Moonlight Experiences is a space where people can book and for them to experience different things that are happening in LGBT cities around the world. So for example, I'm based in London. So when I get my LGBT travelers, I'll take them to a range of places and ensure that they experience the authentic side of London. So when people think of London and the queer space, they think of Soho, certain bars like GAY, you know, because it's so commercial and they have a lot of that power, that media presence for them to be seen. But what I wanted to do for Moonlight Experiences is to be able to champion our actual community, local drag performers, artists, and people that don't get that space. One of the biggest challenges within nightlife is the fact that our venues are not sustainable. Our venues always get shut down. And I feel like the travel industry plus LGBT travelers don't realize that we have the power to be able to change and promote those venues so that they're sustainable. You know, going to your local performances, drag shows in New York, in London, in Paris, in Amsterdam, you know, the lack of lesbian bars. If all the queer travelers go to those lesbian bars, if those go to those bars that are not commercial, again, over time will be sustainable. But also, you know, when we're talking about diversity and representation, what I want to do with Moonlight Experiences is to invite other people to understand what it is like to be in our community, so that they get that authentic experience. Because so many companies and industries, they don't understand the community. Come out on a night out, you know, it's an educational tool so that you understand what is the trans community like. I will go to trans clubs, performances, you get to meet them, talk to them, as opposed to have a lot of assumptions on what it is like to be queer. And I think Moonlight Experiences provides that. You know, it's that place where you can learn and enjoy. Because, you know, what makes, I focus on nightlife because nightlife is so crucial for our community. It's a place where people find themselves and they open out. And for them, if they travel to a city, to be able to experience what they wouldn't have in their own towns, in their own homes, because not everywhere is gay friendly. And we all deserve to feel like we belong, as opposed to just looking commercial. And the likes of Soho, all those commercial places, that's what they provide. You know, they're not places for Black queer women, for plus size, you know, people, for trans people, all those places. Even within our community, we have a lack of representation, you know, for the Black community, for accessibility. So this is a whole round package that I think we all need to be aware of. You know, it shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be on our forefront when marketing and engaging with everybody.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think even like just going onto your website, you can see like from the start, like exactly who you're calling to, and the fact that it is a diverse range of people that you're trying to reach. And I think sometimes a picture speaks 1,000 words on what you're trying to do. Sean, with like you'd have a sort of large Instagram following and a large platform on social media, and with that sometimes we'll do like brand collaborations or work with different partners and promote, you know, various products or destinations. What is it that you look for when you're doing that sort of partnership to know that what you're doing is like an authentic good collaboration versus someone that's just looking to, you know, make some profit?
Yeah, no, I totally get that question, and I appreciate it as well, because personally, from my perspective, I can see through it when someone's promoting something they don't believe in, and that really irritates me, and I don't want to be that person. So definitely for me and Ben, who's unfortunately in the other room working because he's been brought off furlough, he couldn't join me today. But for me and Ben, it's very important that we essentially vet the companies that we partner with the same way that they should be vetting us. It is a two-way thing. So if someone approaches us, I'm immediately on Google looking at exactly what they've done in the past, what campaigns they've done, whether they've done good things for the community, whether they've done nothing or bad things. I want to know the details of the campaign they are bringing us. So for example, this month we are doing one with a hair product brand, and it was actually a really good partnership because they just sent us the stuff with no commitments, said use it for a month and see if you like it. If you like it, we can continue. And yeah, I like it. But they're doing something for Pride, and I said, right, okay, but what are the details? What are you actually doing? And then they sent us a massive list of their partnership with a charity, how much they were giving, and so on. So once I'd got all that information from them, I was then, right, great, I like your product, I like what you're doing, I like your message, you're doing the charity thing, I'm happy to work with you now. So it's definitely doing my own sort of audit and due diligence, and looking at the public perception of that brand, thinking about what they want to achieve, and also, does it make sense for me? Like, especially when you're looking at Instagram and influencers, you are representing you. So if it doesn't make sense for you, why are you promoting it, other than, like you said at the start, Jenna, to make a quick buck? And I think that's where a lot of people perhaps fail, or people lose trust. I think trust is a really important thing, especially for what we're talking about, because, you know, taking it back to travel, if I'm talking about a destination or a hotel and I'm recommending it, how awful would it be if I recommended you go somewhere and then you had a bad experience because you were LGBTQ. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it both ways. It's not just yes, pay me. I have to be very confident that I want to work with them as well.
For sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I think the vetting process makes a lot of sense, because you want to know that a brand is like actually committed and has a history of that support, rather than just jumping on a bandwagon for whatever is like popular that month. Aisha, I know that's something that we've discussed as well. Like, is there a history of support there? I guess a question that's just sort of come to mind: if there's a brand or someone listening who doesn't have that history but wants to get started, what would your thoughts be on like how a company could begin to do that without looking like they're just jumping on the bandwagon? Like, what sort of tips? Josh, I see you nodding there. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, no, this is something that I've personally dealt with numerous times, especially now, specifically, with the Black Lives Matter movement. There's so many brands and companies out there that you never really heard of, or you never thought that would be able to have the bravery and stand for one side, because the thought of maybe losing clientele or losing money or dividing their audience. And it's a scary thing, but I think it's the right thing to do for sure. It's a progressive mentality, and majority of the population really does. We're so diverse. We're not just one group of people, so being able to do that and represent equally is important. In regard to tips, I would say the first thing is for sure the inner education of within the company itself and brand. I think it's important to really have someone of a group representing that group at the seat of the table. So whether it be, someone, a person of color, or someone who belongs to the LGBTQ community, whatever the case may be, get their opinion, get their voice. Educating from within is the best way to really go ahead and portray genuineness outwardly. Everyone can kind of tell who's fake, who isn't, who is quote unquote woke, who is just doing it for the buck, who is just doing it for the month, And I think the companies that really develop and take the time to develop the training and develop the education within really shines out. It's not tangible, but we can tell. So ensure that you have people from different backgrounds represented at the seat of the table, make sure their voices are heard, ask questions, and none of these conversations are easy to have. They're all difficult, but the more that you talk about something, the more that you bring it to light, the less fearful it becomes. The monster is always scarier in the closet, no pun intended, when the lights are off. But the minute you turn that light on and you start shining that light on, it becomes less scary. You know what you're facing. So just be genuine and just involve people.
Cool. Aisha, I can see you nodding. Do you want to add anything to that for people who are trying to do better?
No, absolutely. I agree with Josh. We can tell if you're just doing it, for 5 seconds just because it's trending. And I feel like similar to when we travel as LGBT members, we look into like the gay travel index. You look at what is the anti-discrimination laws and policies, and whether this place is safe, whether people can adopt. So the gay travel index takes into that factor. You can find it on Google. You can see which countries are at the top, which ones are at the bottom. So therefore you can see which ones are less safe to go to. At the same time, there is also different resources that you can use where we have that for representation and diversity. So when you are a brand and when you want to reach out to a range of people, you should use certain of these. They're like report cards. Okay, how many people of color do you actually represent? And if you don't, you can see where you're lacking. It's almost a spectrum. This is what I do with my company now, and this is where I can go. Grade yourself from A to F. What would you get as a brand right now in terms of representation and diversity? And I think, with Black Lives Matter and COVID-19 is a time for reflection and truly embrace that so that we can make that change and move forward. And, similar to what Josh said, if you don't know something, bring people on the table. And I also want to encourage a lot of the travel influencers watching and bloggers who do so much to be visible and to help our community, but I often feel like we don't realize how much more we can do. And when brands actually say, hey, do you want to come to this? Do you want to represent my product? If you're not the right person for it, don't just do it. you know, similar to, yeah, don't just do it. Invite somebody else, invite other communities. You know, I've been to conferences where they're talking about diversity and there was no, you know, diverse person on the panel. Everybody was white, and that makes no sense to me. So if you're invited to something like that, say, hold on a minute, why have you invited a trans person? Why haven't you invited somebody with accessible needs? Why is it that this panel is only white and with men? You know, challenge those people, because the more you challenge brands, the more they'll change. And if they know you're not going to work with them until they bring somebody on board, that will force them to change. So we really, as a community, need to think about that as well and constantly do it, because as the traveling community, we can make a lot of change.
I think that's a really powerful message, particularly us all, anyone with a platform, to like think about where you can give that platform to have better representation. And then on the flip side as well, something I've found really useful in the last couple of weeks even is diversifying like who I'm following on social media as well. Like widen that network, widen the people that you've got in your community, so that when those opportunities do come up, you can pass them and make sure the right people, the opportunities reach the right people. I think that's a really, really powerful message. And you don't need to work in marketing to have that shift and influence that representation that we all really, really need to see. Cool. We just shared the poll results there. So a strong opinion on needing some more diversity in the travel market, with 98% of people voting that we need more. So hopefully there has been some really great insights and really great thoughts on how we can all, regardless of whether we're working in marketing or working in another field, push companies to do better in having diverse representation, and give our platform to ensure that the right voices are heard when they should be. So I believe we have quite a few questions coming in on Slido. Just a reminder for anyone who wants to ask our panelists questions, the hashtag on slido.com is #travel. So if you want to head there, you can submit a question. If you don't have a question of your own, but there's a question there you'd like to see answered, you can give it a thumbs up and you can give it an upvote, and that will push to the top, because we probably won't have time to answer all the questions coming in. But we'll start with the first one. So do you easily understand what marketing campaigns are genuine in their cause and which ones are not when you see it? Asking because of the overwhelming amount of Pride campaigns. So I think, Sean, you spoke to that a little bit, but yeah, what's your signs for knowing what's a genuine campaign?
It's quite a nuanced thing, really. It's hard to articulate what it is. It's almost a feeling you can almost tell, and I think was it Josh or Aisha mentioned it earlier, that we can tell when someone's being fake, when it doesn't hold any water. There's definitely an element of history. If it's something they're doing regularly every year, that's a point in their favor. But then going back to what you asked earlier on, they've got to start somewhere. So it's kind of trying to read their intentions and then keep an eye on that company going forward. You know, is it just, I think like Aisha said, a 5-second plug and that's it, and then I never mention it again. So it's not, you can't always necessarily tell in the very first instance. You do have to definitely look at the wider picture, and as you look at more, read about more campaigns and different brands, you will start to see the signs of what makes a good one and then see through those that don't. But like anything, the more you see, the more you realize which are good and which aren't, I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so supporting what Sean is saying, you know, we do have to do our own homework for sure. You know, it's not all just on what we see on Instagram, or just because changed their logo to a rainbow. And great, you know, we do have to do our own research as well to stay educated. You know, we can't necessarily be lazy. And I think I'm definitely guilty of this. You know, it's, oh, we see them, you change a logo to a rainbow, or they're producing rainbow products. Great. It's not just that. You have to be able to see beyond the superficial wall of that rainbow washing. So a lot of that accountability does come on the consumer itself. Very strong believer in, you know, dollars equal votes, and it's fake. You know, don't support something. Do your homework.
Awesome. don't know who wants to take this next one, but are there any brands that you think are doing a really great job of representing the LGBT community? And if so, like how or what are they doing to make a difference? Does anyone have anyone that springs to mind?
Yeah.
Aisha?
Yeah, there are several brands. I mentioned a couple earlier, just such as Eurostar, who are doing kind of promotion for the LGBT community in terms of using their services, Delta Airlines as well. And also last year, Thailand Tourism Board actually did a massive campaign on LGBT travel, Go Thai Be Free. And again, I know they reached out to a lot of the LGBT influencers that we had on this panel. And I think that speaks volume, because it's not about just getting anybody to represent the community. They were going through and getting a variety of people. So brands like that are doing it right. And they don't just do it like once, but it's continuous process, and that change will come over time and constantly growing. And I think similar to what Skyscanner has been doing over the years, trying to change what they do and how they view the community and who they represent. So starting small and doing it over time, and putting a platform like this where we, all voices are amplified, also really helps.
Awesome. Anyone else got any like great practice they've seen?
I mean, not so much a brand, but from a destination perspective, just because Aisha mentioned Thailand, I think it might be linked to that Go Thai Be Free campaign. But in Thailand, they have an LGBT travel symposium every year, which I think UN organises. So the fact that as a country they have a whole symposium dedicated to LGBT travel says a lot. They have that in Stockholm as well. We were at that a few years ago. So taking it away from a brand and sort of back to travel, that's also good to see from destinations, because it shows they've got a commitment and they're putting resources in. And those symposiums, you have all different hotels and activity providers come along, and they're there to learn. They're there to learn how they can service us as a community. And that is a really important way that a destination as a country can make a difference as well. But yeah, and the other one, just because I've got my t-shirt on, this is from H&M. Everybody is free to love. And if you type in H&M LGBT into Google image search, you'll see that their campaign is very diverse indeed, all across the community. Yeah, just type that into Google, you'll see it for yourself. But I was quite impressed with H&M. And again, everything from that Pride collection, there was a charitable element too.
Yeah, I enjoy that their Pride collection appears in, so of course most stores are split male and female, but they actually have a lot of their clothes in both sections, so they don't have like, this is your male Pride range and your female. So I really enjoy that the clothes appear in two different places in the shop, but it's not different clothes. It's like, this is our Pride range for everyone. I think they
I think it's the same on the website. The models are both wearing them as well.
Yeah. Josh, what about you? What have you seen?
Yeah, and another great fashion brand that's kind of doing a really great job is Levi's. They have, it is Pride Month, so they do have a Pride collection, but they've kind of went beyond just doing the rainbow type of advertising and inclusion into their clothing and their collection. They've actually done a whole trans line as well, promoting the trans flag and using those colors to really represent what's important. And they've used trans models, they've used drag queens, they've used people of color. So it truly is a full-on spectrum of diversity, both in their campaigning, but also in their materials and in their collection. So shout out to Levi's.
Awesome. Sean, the next question, just back to the stats. Do you have those published anywhere that someone could refer back to those?
They're on my LinkedIn, actually.
Okay.
I've not posted them anywhere else apart from LinkedIn. But if you add me on LinkedIn and just send a note, say, this is where you found my name, I'll accept you and you can take a look at them on there. Well, you should be able to find me under the Globetrotter guys, but it's Sean Walton Guest if you need my full name.
Awesome, thanks for that. Next question, Black content creators are now overwhelmed with requests. What can brands do to make sure they include the community without asking too much? Does anyone want to take that?
Yeah, I think obviously, once again, and this kind of falls in light of rainbow washing. It's popular, you know, it's what's happening now, it's trending, etc. But I think there are a lot of brands out there that are really genuinely interested and genuinely want to kind of help out and represent and have a share of voice in the community for what's right. There has been a lot of pressure on the Black community, both externally and internally, to kind of help, quote unquote, educate and use their voice. I think when it comes to asking too much from a brand standpoint, it's just important to realize not everyone necessarily is an educator just because of the color of your skin or because you represent that community. So almost open the door and have an open invitation, a conversation. Like, what are you willing to do? Is there anything that you want to say without having forcing the hand, you know, and doing too much? It is an open conversation. It's a two-way conversation. Anything from a progress standpoint has to have that two-way communication. That's my 2 cents.
For sure. Aisha, do you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really interesting time, and to see so many requests, you know, for Black creators. And I think the best way is you can work with them all year round. It doesn't have to be just now. Especially with what's going on. And so it's allowing time to give them space so that they can come to you as well. And you can start making changes now and implementing different things within your organization. And, you know, similar to what Josh said, not everybody wants to also be involved. It's be mindful that it's also a time that plays upon mental health. So demanding so much right now and then later on kind of disappearing off. So just ensuring that you have a whole year-round perspective on wanting to use Black travelers or Black creators absolutely all year round from now to forever, really. Yeah, so it's just to be mindful and to wait and be patient. And if they do trust your brand, because it's about trust. And in order for that trust has to be earned, because I think for so long, so many people kept quiet. So it's trust. So that comes with time. So show not, you know, the Black community, the LGBT community, that you are authentic and you do want to help, because that is crucial. It's like, in order for us to do anything, we need to do it together, you know, not just one person or one community over the other. But yeah.
Great, thanks for your thoughts on that. I think that will be really helpful to a lot of people who are currently trying to figure out what they can do that's in a sensitive way, but also like you want to be meaningful and impactful and as quick as possible, but also in a way that's sensitive to the pressure that is currently and all the ask that is being asked of the Black community to speak up and share. And like you say, Josh, not everyone is an educator, so seeking out those people who are in those positions to do that work and giving space to people who are not comfortable to do that. Cool. We've still got a couple more minutes. So, what other what travel or other companies do you see yourself represented well by? So I guess this is quite similar to the first question, but maybe some travel companies doing things right. Anyone?
I've got an example that pops to mind. Virgin. I've seen them do a lot consistently over the years. So I'm thinking about travel brands. That's definitely one that comes to mind. And perhaps the biggest thing they did recently, I say recently, this time last year, was the Pride flight for New York, which, oh God, I wish I could have been on that. That just looked.
God, I know, I tried to get tickets also.
I know, it just looked like the most insane thing in the world. But yeah, seeing like that for an example, but it's not just that. I've seen them doing things all the time. They're always at Pride. They do well with their representation in different adverts. So that's one that stands out. And then from a destination perspective, because I keep bringing it back to travel, destination perspective, Stockholm, I think I mentioned that earlier. And that's because on their website, they've got a whole section dedicated LGBTQ travel, branding it as the open city for everyone. So it's not just, you know, a little 500-word thing. They've gone into detail. And the same can be said for Slovenia. They've got a whole section on their website dedicated to LGBT travel to make sure that traveller is welcome to that country. and each year they hold a week called Pink Week, bringing lots of different hotels and brands together to learn about the community. So there are a couple of destinations that immediately come to mind that are doing good things, and I see myself represented in, definitely.
Amazing. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, sure, I can. I think for me, I would love to see like destinations such as like some in Africa, such as like South Africa, such as Rwanda, so places where our communities are a little bit feel isolated. Because I think once they start to kind of promote those for the LGBT community, it almost also, I think, will champion, for example, like the fact that people should travel to more African countries, places in the Middle East, such as Jordan. Again, I really feel like they need to do like a push for LGBT travel. And also for brands like Booking.com. I would love to see more of them being a lot more diverse. You know, for example, when I see that I don't see myself represented in kind of booking companies like that. So I think that would actually change in terms of the perception of a range of travelers and what they see and where they can go.
Sure. Josh, the next question is for you. How has your desire to improve diversity of marketing been received by marketing leaders at companies you've worked at? Does everyone at the top understand why inclusive marketing is important?
It's a really good question. You know, my desire to improve that diversity in marketing and the reception that it received in the past hasn't always been the most positive. I think a lot of companies are comfortable and maybe even scared to represent or do anything outside of the box, you know, because they're scared of they may lose revenue or they may, you know, offend someone. But at the end of the day, the culture within the company alone will tell you what they're willing to do. And I think from the top down level, a lot of CEOs and a lot of execs that have that space and are willing to learn can prove a lot to what you are willing to do at your own level, and they can really just support you in general. And then kind of to tie in the next question I see, the fairly new to marketing and how to have that impact in your work and where to start. I think as a newbie marketing, you know, back in the day, I was scared on my own. You know, I didn't want to upset anybody. I didn't want to get fired. I didn't want to rock the boat. But it's something that you have to kind of look into yourself and really just and say, you know, A, is this a company that I want to work for? And B, is my voice strong enough or is that passion inside me strong enough to really fight for what's really right? We all know what's right, and we all know how to kind of quote unquote change the world. But in regards to where to start for the new to marketing question, I think look up to leadership, look up to execs, look at your boss, look at someone who you can trust and confide in. You know, a lot of companies now do have an inclusion and diversity lead like Jenna, and if you have a Jenna in your team, go to that person and confide in them, because if anything, they share the same exact compassions, the same want for change, the same need for diversification, both internally and externally. Team up, you know, build that trust.
For sure. I think that's a really perfect way to sum it up, and thanks. I was going to try and loop in that second question, so you read my mind. So we've got like 1 minute left. Just want to wrap up with where people can find you, where any sort of projects that you want to shout out or any channels that you would like to push people to go check out. So Sean, I'll start with you. Where can people find you, and are you open to, if anyone's got any further questions, dropping you a message?
Absolutely. Best place to contact me is on Instagram, which is at the Globetrotter Guys, and then second is our website, theglobetrotterguys.com, which has all our travel guides on. And in terms of projects that are coming up, obviously we are incredibly keen to travel again, and we do have a trip coming up actually in August to Croatia. It's a sailing trip that we're going with Pride Sailing Holidays, and actually that is open to all of our followers to join if they want to come along. And of course, you just have to be mindful of what country you're coming from. It's very easy to go from Croatia to Germany, for example, but not so good at the moment if it's US to Croatia, for example. But yeah, that's our next big project, our next big trip coming up, to take a look and keep an eye out for that. But yeah, any questions, drop us a DM on Instagram.
Perfect. And Aisha, where can people find you?
For me, you can find me at Moonlight Experiences and website moonlightexperiences.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Aisha_Shaibu. I work with a range of organisations in London, such as UK Black Pride. We're going to have our virtual Pride coming up, so do check that out. And also me and my fiancée Alexia have an Instagram at The Queer Nomad, so if you want to do that. But I've also started a online LGBT culture nightlife kind of masterclass experience to bring a range of people from the world together so that they can learn more about the LGBT community in London, and just to hear different things you don't hear about the hidden past and present of the community. So if you have free time, please sign up.
Sounds awesome. And Josh, where can people find you?
Skyscanner? No. I am also on Instagram and Facebook underneath the handle JVJ3189. It is my personal handle, but I welcome any questions. Willing to answer any other questions around marketing, diversity, or for a quick chat.
Perfect. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for giving your time and for sharing so many insightful thoughts. Hopefully everyone took away something new and a way that they can better represent the LGBTQ plus community in their marketing and in their future projects. So thank you so much for your time. Anyone else who's on the call wants to hang around, hopefully we'll be going to our Allies panel next in about 8 minutes. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Guys.